DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy, family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into Bills Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com. Back to having Victory Mondays. Our departure away from them did not last too long. Paul Russo, Jim Sinicropi, and Kyle Evans here with you. Bills went in roaring against the Detroit Lions. They come out with a victory, 48-42. Offense on full display. Quite the game. We'll get to all that and more in just a second. But first, I think a couple more of our sponsors here, including Dewey's Tavern within walking distance from downtown Seneca Falls, just across the Bridge Street Bridge. Play quick draw lottery and 19 televisions for all your sporting events. Great food for lunch or dinner, bocce, dart, and pool leagues. You can check them out online at deweysthirdward.com. And the Perfect Pair Eatery, quality carryout cuisine in Seneca Falls. Everything made fresh with in-house smoked meats, comfort classics, desserts, and sweet treats. Sure to please the entire family for lunch or dinner. Also offering business lunch drop-off on Monday or Tuesday. Reach out at perfectpaireatery.com or call at 315-712-4004 and look for the yellow door at 64 West Baird Street. So, 48-42. Jim, you're the only one who predicted the bounce back last week for the Bills, and I guess you price is righted it on us as it was just.
What did I predict?
I can't remember the exact score. 44-42. You inversed the score against the Rams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it was close. Too bad I didn't put any money on it.
Do an exacta bet. But that was one of those fun games, I suppose. I guess similar to maybe even last week in a way against the Rams where, like I kind of mentioned last week, if you're in for the offense and just like the pure sicko way of football, that was just one of those games where it's just like a banger, fun one to watch. Wasn't great on defense. We'll get to more on that here in a few minutes because it was going into the game, it was just going to be a mess for the Bills anyway. But
both teams were banged up on defense.
Yeah.
The entire Bills secondary was a second string. But is this the Super Bowl we want, that America wants?
I mean, I don't know if I necessarily fully agree with what Jim Nantz was saying pregame, but this was America's matchup, and I still think we have a really good possibility of seeing that be the matchup come early February.
Absolutely.
Watch out for the Eagles, though.
Yeah.
The Eagles are more healthier, I would say, on defense, and
more complete team too.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I would enjoy a Lions-Bills Super Bowl just because of what each team has gone through. There'd be a lot of points scored, a lot of offense. It wouldn't be a boring Super Bowl.
Might be an onside kick in the middle of the game for no apparent reason.
Yeah, and remember, you have to declare it nowadays.
Right, I know, which is too bad because that would have been a surprise.
Yeah,
if he was like, but whatever. I'm not a big fan of the new kickoff rule, but. Yeah, anything could be possible. But what about Bills-Eagles in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that'd be fun, too. Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen.
I think that might be a tougher matchup for the Bills. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's crazy. I don't think, going back to kind of like what we were kind of teeing off with a little bit here, who had Ty Johnson as being the leading receiver for the Bills by chance? Anybody going once, twice, three times? I mean, just ended up being crazy. He had a couple, for example, this really big rail-offs.
14 yards.
Like that. But, I mean, again, this Josh Allen kind of, to me, cementing that MVP case again yesterday with his play. I mean, the offense really, to me, is hit. I mean, they've been on this gear all year for the most part. But the fact that they're just maintaining it now at this point at such a high rate, man, that's got to feel more than amazing, I think, in Orchard Park for this team.
Yeah, and the best part about it is they can win in all different ways. I mean, look at Ty Johnson, was a big contributor. I mean, who would have expected that? James Cook still had a massive game. The wide receivers, they don't have to deal with Diggs wanting the ball a ton. Different I mean, Amari Cooper had 0 catches, 0 targets,
Yeah, it's crazy.
and they still put up that amount of yardage. What was it, 559 yards of total offense? So that's probably my favorite part about this Bills team. I remember a few years ago when they said, "Well, the Bills can't run the ball." Well, they sure can now. So yeah, I just love how they win games nowadays.
I think that they're doing a lot of design runs for Josh Allen, which makes it even harder on the defense because, a lot of teams you can't fake it. You can do a little play action and pass it, but the Bills will do a play action and Allen will run it the opposite way. So you're going to look at, James Cook getting a handoff and then Allen running the other way. And then if Allen does want to pass instead of run, I mean, it's impossible to defend. It's impossible. And I think that's why Dan Campbell kicked the extra point because he probably thought to himself, what am I going to do, kick it here? And then 2 plays later, they're already back to the 50, and then they're going to score again. It was one of the craziest calls I've ever seen a coach make in a game. But if you think about it, he knew that they couldn't stop the Bills on defense. So he probably thought that was their best chance was to try to get an onside. 2 onside kicks in the game. And they almost got the second one. But, man, Matt Collins, your boy Matt Collins almost got a touchdown return off that onside kick.
Yeah, and he was very fired up throughout the game. Did you see him talking to the Lions players a lot?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just thought the energy, too, was even better in the Rams game. They looked like they were ready to go. And, I mean, look how they started. They forced the Lions 2 3-and-outs. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead. Remember, with a minute and a half left in the third quarter, they were up 31-14.
Yeah.
So the fourth quarter is really what made the score look better than it was. It looked like the Bills maybe just didn't want to get beat in the fourth quarter, so they put everyone, deeper back and let everything in front of them happen.
Right. And that's when Jahmyr Gibbs started really racking up some.
Yeah, just wide open, space. But yeah, it was. I would still say, despite the score, I think the Bills just really controlled the game throughout the whole way.
Yeah, and that was what surprised me. If I saw Bills win, it may have been Bills coming back from a 2-touchdown deficit, but they came right out, took control early. It was really impressive. And, I mean, not really saying anything too surprising here, but to me, that game yesterday had me feeling more confident about the Bills than I have all year.
I mean, I think it's because you go up against what has been seen as the better team in the NFL this year.
On a record win streak.
Yeah. I mean, you get out to a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. I mean, it kind of allows, I'm not saying you take the foot off the gas pedal by any means, but allows you that wiggle room, right, in a sense. And you could tell the Bills just were able to go out there and kind of just do their own thing yesterday more than anything else. Should mention Matt Collins, former Detroit Lion, by the way. So I think I'm not saying anything was premeditated necessarily.
He was a former lot of teams,
yeah,
wasn't he? Has he been around? He went to the Raiders for a while.
Yeah, he Dolphin, Falcon, yeah. But anyway, I'm sure he probably had a little bit of, whatever in the back of his mind. We know the way high-level athletes kind of work and operate and think. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting game. I know you mentioned actually Amari Cooper, for example. It was pretty interesting to kind of see what ended up being a kind of mishmash of targets at various times. I mean, the leading guys seeing targets were Kincaid and Shakir, both with 7, and having various success, whatever you want to call it, within there. And outside of that, Ty Johnson brought in all 5 of his targets, as we know. We mentioned it right from the jump.
Ty Johnson.
Yeah, I mean,
none to Cooper.
Yeah, Keon Coleman had 1 reception on 2 targets, but it was a big
Nice
one for 64 yards.
See him back.
It was kind of a mishmash of people and everything there. It's one of those things where this is now, I don't know if it's exactly the 3rd week in a row, but we've talked about, I know, in a handful of situations here coming down the stretch where it hasn't maybe necessarily been one guy week to week to week where it's the same guy, but kind of a different kind of guy always being maybe that ends up being the one main guy that Josh targets each week. And that speaks pretty big volumes that they can trust different guys if they got to go out and be a leading receiver, whether it's a wide receiver, tight end, or in yesterday's case, a running back.
Yeah, if you look at the box scores throughout the year and you don't actually watch the games, you'll wonder, like, why do they look the way they do? I mean, and how are they winning these games? But just everyone chips in. You know, like you said, Keon Coleman had that big 64-yard catch. Didn't get another catch, but that was still a huge part of the game and set them up. So just the little things are being done that sets them up for success. And I don't really think, like, again, we could really say that they did that last year. I mean, they had to fire their offensive coordinator. They were, they were 500 at one point?
Mid-season, yeah.
Yeah, totally different situation this year, man. They're just, they were left for dead mid-season last year. And I think, obviously, 11-3, any Bills fan would have taken it to be 11-3 at this point in the preseason. Still 2 games behind the Chiefs. There's a chance, though. Mahomes went down. Who knows if he's going to play Saturday against the Texans. So, and the Bills obviously have a pretty easy schedule, although I don't think they'll be easy games. New England at home, Jets at home, at New England to end. So weird. But yeah, there's a chance that they could catch. And if they can get tied with the Chiefs, they'll win the tiebreaker. So there's a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, I did want to talk a little bit about this. I know it still is some people's minds probably a little far out in this sense, but I mean, yesterday ends up kind of becoming, even though we talked a little bit about it anyway into last week and even the week before, how this game could have became a must-win type game for the Bills in a way. I think going into the game, whether they exactly knew it or not, it did become that because of the Chiefs getting that win. It keeps you in that shot for the 1 seed. I know, Jim, you mentioned obviously Mahomes going down with that ankle issue again, as I say, because it's a year in and year out deal for him at this point.
Game
by the way, the Chiefs are now officially into this run of 3 games in 11 days.
Yeah.
And anything can happen at that point. I don't care who you are. I mean, you're playing 3 games in 11 days for football. It's crazy. And then you mentioned, right, the Steelers end up losing to the Eagles, so you're able to get a little bit of a
1-game lead.
A breather again there. It was pretty big for the Bills to hold on to that 2nd seed, and mission accomplished coming out of Detroit with that as well.
Yeah, and I think if you're the Bills, if you don't get the 1 seed, you want to play that 7th seeded team. And right now it's the Chargers. I mean, it's probably going to flip. Like the Broncos were there for a while. So I don't really know if it's going to be the Chargers, but I think you would choose to play one of those teams over some of the other ones that are ahead. So
Broncos, Chargers, Texans, one of those teams, maybe Ravens if they stumble.
Yep.
Or, there's 3 teams that are not mathematically eliminated yet. That would be the Colts and the Bengals and the Dolphins. They're all 6 and 8. So we'll see what happens. But, I would like to see the Bills take care of business the next 3 weeks, get 3 more wins, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to slip up one of these last 3 games. I mean, how do you come off a stretch like this where, they played Kansas City, San Francisco, the Rams, and Detroit. Now you got Patriots twice and the Jets. And I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. By the time they get to the Week 18 against the New England at New England, they might be resting people because it might not matter. So
yeah. I mean, that's the other part of it too, to me. And if we're talking 2 of the 3 games on the road, I think it's a different discussion. But 2 of the 3 are at home. It's back-to-back home games. Patriots this upcoming weekend, and then the Jets in between going to New England at that point in Week 18. So, it'll be interesting. I think if they're landlocked into that 2 spot, I don't know how much we'll see Josh Allen, like you mentioned, Jim, and other guys in Week 18, but that's further down the line than what we got right in front of us.
And it might be a gift, they could, because it's probably going to be pretty poor conditions in New England, and Bills can get healthy. That'd be a luxury to be able to sit some of these guys, and especially on defense.
Yeah, I was about to say, speaking of health, let's get over to that defense. It's been the side of the ball, if we're going to be honest, that has probably had the most health issues this year. Obviously, Kincaid and Coleman and a couple guys on offense we've mentioned throughout the year have been dinged up and missed games, but it's been a big talking point about this defense. has been how they've been able to kind of withstand the storm of injuries that they've had to deal with for the most part this year. And yesterday, admittedly, it did almost catch up to them. Pre-game, -3 starters in the secondary nonetheless. And it almost caught up to them, like I said. And then, I think I don't want to look too far down the line here again. I keep mentioning that, but I think they're going to get bailed out a little bit here, especially this upcoming week against the Patriots to a degree in regards to passing and health and getting people back. But I know for me personally, when I saw the injury report come out yesterday, especially the Russell Douglas one being out, I'm like, oh man, I thought this was not going to be looking good for the Bills.
Douglas, Hamlin, and Rapp.
And it almost turned out to be the case, like I said, but
Defensive line
yeah.
Picked up the slack for the defense. I mean, Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau, I mean, they were a pretty dominant force for a defense that gave up 42 points. That might have been the difference, the play of the defensive line.
Yeah, I know. I said at one point yesterday watching the game, I was like, when you're an offensive line, it's never good when you're the one getting pancaked and not the D-line. And I'm about to say Ed Oliver had a couple of those yesterday on the center for Detroit, Glazov, where it was just like, oh, he's on his ass, and they're coming through. And I think you saw that, frankly, Jim, like you mentioned, they did, but I mean, you saw in the run game. I mean, Gibbs was our leading rusher with 3 touches. I mean, or 8 touches, 31 yards. I mean,
rushing. He had more than that receiving.
Right. But what I'm saying, though, is like we talked about last week how this team almost makes you more worried for the rushing more than anything else. And now they might have been shoehorned a little bit because of the deficit early on of what they had to do. But, I mean, you kept what ended up being a really good tandem all year up until that point in check. And Montgomery got dinged up a little bit too yesterday, but...
Well, they targeted Ahmad St. Brown like 15, 16 times. I mean, they just, because of the Bills' secondary, I think they just, threw the ball downfield. And the only check that the Bills had was the pressure on the quarterback that, that the Bills got.
Yeah, I think game script was definitely part of it. I mean, only 15 total attempts. And Jared Goff had, a 13-yard run. So he had 13 of their 48 yards.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's the first time the Lions have ever been under 100 all year. And they didn't even reach 50 in this game. So, yeah, I still want to give them credit, but at the same time, you look at the attempts, they didn't really run.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
These are 2 teams have Super Bowl aspirations that have never won the Super Bowl for these fan bases. It was really kind of a weird type of game here. 2 of the best teams in the NFL. Both fan bases are sure they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Neither team has won the Super Bowl. So it was interesting from that regard. And again, if it ends up being a Bills-Lions Super Bowl, I think that American sports fans will be more than happy with it.
Hey, I mean, everybody loves Dan Campbell for the most part. I think Josh Allen's kind of turned the tide on a lot of the general public as well here recently with his.
You not love the guy. I mean, how can he plays so hard? He's never hurt. I mean, he's hurt, but he still plays, and he's creative. You can tell he loves playing, and whether it's snow, rain, or sunshine, or inside, outside. I mean, he's really something. I mean, to me, that's the one thing I've learned about Josh Allen this season that I didn't know maybe going into the season over the summer was that, he really is the best player in the NFL. And that includes Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Now, some people might disagree with me.
Well, I don't think they really can this year, especially.
Look, you take any other quarterback and put him in Buffalo. Are the Bills 11-3 right now? I mean, any other quarterback, maybe Mahomes.
But we see Mahomes struggling now with a lack of receivers.
Right. And
so if he had what Buffalo had, I don't know. Maybe Kincaid would just be his favorite target like Kelsey is.
Kincaid and Knox like Gray and Kelsey.
Yeah.
I'd make the case Buffalo's wide receiving core this year is better than Kansas City's. But
well, yeah, it's better, but you look at the names. I mean, you got a rookie, Keon Coleman. You got Mac Hollins. You finally got Amari Cooper, but, I mean,
they got DeAndre Hopkins in Kansas City now. But
going into the year.
Who's a better runner? Obviously,
Oh,
Allen's a better runner than Mahomes. Like, Mahomes couldn't pull off some of these runs that Allen has had to for them to win. And, you know, I mean, Lamar Jackson, maybe. If Lamar Jackson was Buffalo's quarterback, would they be 11-3? Maybe. He's
That might be the only one. I'm only going to say that just because of the style of play element more than
Right.
anything else.
So, I mean, give Allen the MVP now because it's over.
Well, according to RG3, it's still up for debate
Oh, yeah.
between Lamar and Josh, and it'll be decided on Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah, Lamar had a great game yesterday.
I understand, but like I don't understand if you're going to make the case for MVP outside of Josh Allen. I think it's Saquon and that's it. I don't understand the Lamar.
yeah,
MVP.
Well,
too
his
much
game
yesterday.
yesterday, his game yesterday, I think ended at 19 carries for 65 yards, no touchdowns. Faced the number 4 run defense and got stuffed all game.
I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, back to the Bills defense for a quick second, because even in game, we kind of mentioned they get dinged up again. Cole Bishop has to cart it off, as we saw, well, quasi-carted off. I mean, this has just ended up becoming a secondary that's just been beyond dinged up at this point. I don't even know at this point who they really have in reserves to go back out there and kind of handle. I know Elam, he ended up getting the start yesterday. I mean, it's crazy what this secondary's kind of had to become in a way.
Yeah, well, Cole Bishop's going to be fine just cramping, and I think we could see Micah Hyde very soon, honestly, even maybe late in the year when, like, that Week 18 game might not matter. Maybe he just gets in for reps.
And then we see him in the playoffs.
Yeah, Christian Benford played well, had a sack.
Yeah, he did.
Forced Amon-Ra St. Brown to fumble,
True.
and then Milano recovered. But, yeah, they are banged up. So that's why when I said with a minute and a half left in the third quarter, they're up 31-14. How did that secondary keep them to 14 through basically almost 3 quarters?
Yeah,
When they
pretty
were
wild.
throwing the ball like crazy. 59 passing attempts. Kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if for some of those guys it comes down to like a stamina element, like they just aren't used to having that many reps, frankly.
Yeah, and Kyer
game.
Elam's been a healthy scratch for the last 4 or 5 weeks, so it was his first action, other than practice, of course, but this is different.
I'm about to say, I think the last time I saw him, at least stat book wise, was maybe the snow game. In all honesty, maybe before that even. I might be getting my games crossed up, but like, yeah, it's just look, it's a tough go of it. They're making it work for the most part here. It's one of those things where, like I said, I don't worry so much about against the Patriots. I guess maybe against the Jets to a little bit of a degree, I kind of have a little bit of worry, but I mean,
Well, the
we're 2
first
weeks
time we
away.
played the Jets, we won by 3.
And that was the last time they scored under 30 points, all the way back in October.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Jets would probably give them the most trouble. They seem to always fight with the Bills a lot the last several years, especially
is in-
defensively.
It is in Buffalo, so the Bills will be home for that one at least. I think that game will mean something for the Bills still, so I think they'll win. They'll end up winning that game. Next week worries me just because it's home too, but it just seems, I don't know. Hopefully, Bills have been away for a couple weeks, at LA and at Detroit. They're coming home. Hopefully obviously there'll be a big turnout, but it's a bit of a donut game, Like I said, come off this win against Detroit. Now you got to come back home and play the Patriots. Hopefully they're up for it. As banged up as they are.
Jim, it's okay. The scary man is now in the Piedmont. He's not there in New England anymore.
Who's that?
Bill Belichick.
Oh yeah, he's gone to college.
Yeah.
But let me say one thing here that really worries me, and I hope it doesn't come true. But Tyler Bass missed a pretty important kick yesterday.
Yeah.
It was basically an extra point, and
Yeah.
I just can't help but worry that somewhere down the line, AFC Championship, Super Bowl, that Tyler Bass has come out with a kick to tie, send it to overtime, win. Bills are down 2. They drive it down to the 30-yard line. And now here comes Tyler Bass to win the Super Bowl with a field goal. Yeah. And, of course, all the ghosts of Scott Norwood. It just worries me because that's the type of thing that can just ruin somebody, and could ruin a franchise.
Yeah.
I don't know how Bills fans would bounce back from that. And Bass is every time he takes a step forward to make me think, all right, he misses a kick like that.
Now, I'll say this. Kickers have said that those chippies can be some of the tougher ones.
Come on.
Well, from the angle, that being said,
I know, kick it through the field goal. I mean,
my main thing, and I said this, I literally pretty much said verbatim what you just said, Jim, to somebody yesterday. He's gonna cost him when it's gonna have to matter. And they made their bed with him. He's a very good kicker. I'm not saying that he's bad or anything like that, but this year especially, I worry that he's going to be in a spot where it's going to have to matter, and I just don't know what the reaction's going to be.
A lot of kickers are struggling this year, like Jake Elliott for Philly. I don't need to go through the list. A lot of
sure
kickers.
It's not David Akers? Tom Brady was pretty sure it was David Akers.
Yeah, that's true. I heard that. But, it's tough being a kicker in the NFL. And I just can't quite figure Bass out because he'll kick a game winner from 50-plus yards. Mm-hmm. He made a long field goal in the second half yesterday, but then out of nowhere, just either a terrible kick or that one that he pushed to the right. I just can't. I'm really worried about it. Coming down into the postseason, especially, AFC Championship, Super Bowl, that poor guy cost him a win because I don't think that the Bills fans base could handle that.
And it kind of happened in that AFC, was it divisional round last year against Kansas City?
Yeah.
When he missed the game-tying field goal with a minute and a half to go. Again, we talked about it. Mahomes had a lot of time, of course. Yeah. But you still have to hit that. And,
right, you got to make him do it.
Yeah, and that was the talk. He received death threats. He had to try to bounce back this year from, being so low. And then, he had a couple good weeks, like you mentioned, and then he goes right back to that
out of nowhere
shot.
And that was a bit. That was
inside.
Yeah, in a position where he makes that, you got Bills fans got to be thinking, "Oh, this game's over." Just in that would have made it, I think, a 3-score game at the time. I can't remember, but
minimum 3 possession.
Yeah. So I don't wish that on anybody, but it really worries me more than anything else about this team because they seem to be able to. Get it done in multiple ways, but at some point on a Super Bowl run against these good teams, it's going to come down to a field goal. And I don't have confidence that Bass is going to make it. It's almost like flipping a coin. It's like, I know he can do it. He could probably make 3-4 in a row, but what about the one that he misses?
They cut to him yesterday on the sideline before coming out for the field goal. And I'm like, the only time I've really ever seen the look that he had in his eyes was like college kickers. And I'm just like, oh, God, like this dude right now. And, I'm in the same boat as you guys, man. I just hope it's not, like I said, I hope it's just not at that wrong time.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Time will tell, but that's leaving, after the game yesterday, that's my biggest concern. It's worrisome. It's worrisome.
Yeah.
By the way, it's the shortest missed field goal that wasn't blocked since Jake Elliott in 2020. He missed from 22 yards.
It's amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
Not the stat you want to be a part of.
Yeah, and really the lone, black spot on a great win for the Bills. It's the only thing I could really think about that was, not good from yesterday. He did redeem himself by making a longer one, and the second he nailed it. But that's the thing is, like, every time he lines up, and the bigger the kick, the more worried Bills fans are going to be. So pray for Tyler Bass, Bills fans, this Christmas season. Keep him in your hearts, light a candle.
All right. On that note, let's get to this Patriots game a little bit more here. The Bills come in big favorites if you're part of this squad. Line currently at 14, opened at 14.5, so a little bit of movement already here overnight. Your over-under total has stayed the same at 46.5 as it stands right now. Depending on what you look at here, Bills are pretty much matchup predictor wise a near shoo-in to win. So what could possibly go wrong, right? One of those cases where everybody shows the Bills logo, and next thing you know, you're on freezing cold takes in the morning. But yeah, like I said, for me personally, I don't worry so much about this game as I do maybe the two after it. I think a little bit has to do with the home field more than anything else.
Coming back from just this road trip, the biggest game of the year against Detroit, and now you're home on a Sunday at 1:00 against the Patriots. 3 days before Christmas.
about to say,
Most of the Bills fans are going to be thinking about their Christmas goose.
Do they treat this as the Christmas game as opposed to next week or the week after with the Jets?
Yeah, that's the New Year's game. That would be on December 29th. Yeah, no, it worries me. It worries me. Of course the Bills should win. They're 14.5-point favorites, like you said, but it's a donut game, and they're banged up, but we'll see. I mean, we give them predictions?
Yeah, if you want to get into yours right now,
I think the Bills will win. I think it'll be an ugly game. I think the Bills win 26-13.
Ooh, a little low scoring for the Bills for what they've been putting up, huh?
Yeah, I just have a feeling it'll be ugly. Or I don't know. We'll see. But I think the Bills do win. But I don't think it's anything like we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
No, when the Patriots beat the Bills last year, it was 29-25. But that was in New England. They won the home game. But yeah, I'm gonna throw my prediction quick. I wrote this down last night. I think they're gonna cover. I think it's gonna be 34-17.
You could see that too.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, weather right now is showing cloudy and a nice balmy 17 degrees.
Cold. Going to be cold next weekend. Yeah.
So I guess nothing in terms of precipitation-wise, anything crazy right now. That being said,
Depends which way the wind blows, though.
definitely,
sometimes.
yeah, definitely. Well, that's more than a fact as they've already seen.
See, yesterday, the weather in Buffalo yesterday, if that game happened to be in Buffalo, there's a lot of snow.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching some of the Storm Chaser stuff from Thursday, and Hamburg was ground zero for it anyway, which is, if you're familiar with the area, that Hamburg is pretty much Orchard Park at that point. And, early season here stuff for Lake Effect has been brutal to say the least, would be an understatement for sure, as we've already seen anyway with the snow game and stuff like that. It's tough because I was on the wrong end betting wise yesterday, admittedly, of the Ravens and Giants game where, if you get me north of the 2 touchdown mark in the NFL, there's kind of a principle, at least covering wise, of taking the other team here.
Sometimes teams are just that bad, like the Giants.
Yeah.
Ugh, jeez.
And I don't see that being an issue for the Bills necessarily this week coming up. But that being said, cold weather does tend to lean a little bit more on the low scoring side of affairs for the most part. I think they cover, though. I'm kind of with both of you guys here. I'm actually leaning more towards, I'm going to go 31-10. I
didn't have them covering.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you didn't.
It was close.
Yeah,
but.
yeah. Look, math is hard. Anyway, I just think the Bills, the one thing I hope the Bills don't do with this game, and I could be wrong, whatever you want to call it. I just hope they don't go into each of the next 3 weeks, starting with this week, get to a point in the game where they feel like they need to get off the gas. And I don't think that's necessarily the case with them. We haven't seen that really all year. I just worry you get teams in these late season games where, they feel quote unquote comfortable and they can kind of, like I said, maybe ease off the gas a little bit. I don't think they can necessarily afford to do that. And that's where I worry a little bit going forward. I don't think it's going to be an issue, like I said. It kind of sits in the back of my mind with some of these teams each time. And especially, look, the next 3 games, right? We keep mentioning it. Patriots, Jets, Patriots one is for sure the biggest rivalry the Bills have had the past 15, 20 years, whatever you want to call it. Their one has been a mainstay rivalry for the Bills since the inception of the NFL merging with the AFL. I mean, you can't take these games for granted no matter what. And in these games, I still view it like this, like I do in college to the NFL and any pro sport. It's a crapshoot sometimes in these rivalry games. What can happen?
Yeah, the Jets and the Patriots are combined 7-21.
Yeah, that's true.
On the season, so they're not good. The Jets did look good yesterday against Jacksonville. I suppose they look good against Jacksonville. They got the win. Pick up their 4th win of the year. But yeah, we've seen it before in these divisional games. Anything can happen. So we'll just see. But I just know that so much excitement for this week's game against Detroit. I mean, it was the game of the week. NFL Today was pre-gaming from, outside or inside, wherever they were in Detroit. Yeah. And this Bills New England game is going to be like at the bottom of the list of games to look forward to this Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you kind of mentioned it, I think, without really saying it. You're hoping that there is no hangover of sort.
Yeah,
more than
donut game. They just got this big win. Everybody was talking about it all week long. And they're going to come home and play Patriots. I'm sure everybody thinks the Bills are going to win. So hopefully they take care of business. I think they will win, but just in situations like this, it can't be complacent.
Yes. 100%.
Because it is a big game. To get this win would get them to 12-3, and as we mentioned, the Chiefs got a tough one this week with Mahomes banged up. So you could enter Week 17 with the Bills being 12-3 and the Chiefs being 13-2. And now you're just one game away with 2 games to go. Bills hold the tiebreaker. So let's keep our fingers crossed that it plays out like that. Because I would love to see the AFC Championship game in January being in Buffalo.
Yeah. Can imagine the scenes now potentially.
Yeah,
imagine that lake effect.
it would be wild.
Yeah. All right. I think that about does it. I don't think we really missed anything to my knowledge. So we'll get out of there on that note. So we're all predicting another Bills Victory Monday next week when we hop in. Luckily here at Bills Weekly, since we're here on Mondays, no change coming up here for the holidays. So I have no housekeeping notes to give everybody on that note. So we'll be back at it again next Monday, 10 a.m., same time, same place, same bat channel. Appreciate everybody for listening and tuning in. Back at it again, like I mentioned, next Monday at 10 a.m. Like, share, subscribe, fingerlicks1.com YouTube channel, and all major podcasting platforms, Spotify and Amazon Music being the 2 main of those. Appreciate everybody once again for tuning in and listening. Let's go Buffalo.